I'm so happy to be here in Boulder. My name is Erika Bergman, and as Jim mentioned, I'm a submarine pilot. And on the airplane on the way here, I was sitting next to someone, and it came up, jobs came up, and they said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Oh, I'm a submarine pilot. It's not something you hear every day." And they said, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to Boulder." And I kid you not, it's been raining. You're going to go diving? I hope it wasn't that deep of a rain. So that was my introduction to bringing submarines to Boulder. But I look for any other opportunities one might have to dive in the desert. I know the opportunities are out there. I'm so excited to be here today. I'm really appreciative of Vicky and Rob and Jamie and everyone it took to set up this event. And I'm excited to share with you a little bit about how the ocean inspires me. I mean, we're all here for the same reason, because we love the ocean. And I'm hoping to share that enthusiasm with an up-and-coming generation of ocean explorers. Um, and I like to share my enthusiasm through ocean outreach using my personal favorite, manned submersibles. Um, so more specifically, over the past 3 years, I've been technician and pilot for a submarine called Antipodes. And Antipodes is a 5-man research submersible. This is it here. Bright yellow submarine. They're always yellow. We get the song a lot. And I've had the opportunity to dive this submarine through extraordinary expeditions, from the annual invasion of the sea nettle jellies in Monterey, California, to 3,000 miles away, diving in Miami, Florida, where I half accidentally called a pod of dolphins into the submarine, which was an extraordinary experience. In Monterey, California, I had recorded the audio of a pod of dolphins, Pacific white-sided dolphins, I believe, in Monterey, just on my iPhone, because I'm sitting in the sub listening over the scuba phone. I record it. A year later, and 3,000 miles away, just totally for a fluke, no pun intended, I played that clip of dolphin sounds over the speaker, and out of nowhere, a huge pod of bottlenose dolphins came racing into the submarine. And they pose well for photos, let me tell you. Dolphins are great, majestic animals. But the real joy of manned submersibles is that they allow you the opportunity to use more than just your eyes. What I think of for manned submersibles is that they are a universal translator. My background is in chemistry, and chemistry doesn't tend to pose well for photos, not like a dolphin does. So I have to use other skills. When you're in a manned submersible, you're allowed to make mental maps, perceive sounds, feel acceleration, all kinds of things that you can't do if you're using a remotely operated vehicle. Um, and that's where the true value of submarines lie. So, for example, one of my favorite stories of how submarines can explain chemistry. Imagine, if you will, the eastern horizon going off into the Atlantic, and the Gulf Stream is running at lightning speed up the coast. Everyone knows that the Gulf Stream moves really fast and it moves north, but that's not a very tangible concept. It seems very abstract. And at the surface, the only indication of the Gulf Stream is sort of a change in roughness between the stiller water and the quick-moving Gulf Stream, and there's usually a little band of sargasso seaweed that borders the Gulf Stream. So when you're in a boat at the surface, you can kind of tell where it is, but dive down at that interface in a manned submersible, and what's only hinted at the surface rises up above you like this mural painted in all of these Caribbean camouflage colors. The water is alternating between teal and aquamarine, and it looks like heat radiating up off of a hot tarmac. Um, and I never would have imagined something that looks like that if I hadn't been diving in a submarine. So it's just one more reason that I believe science rules. Physical evidence that science rules. But what's the point of having all of these experiences if they just get stored in a vault somewhere in the recesses of your mind? As Fabian mentioned earlier, it's your obligation to share these experiences with a wider audience. And I love reaching out and communicating the value of deep sea research with anyone I can get my hands on. So as much as possible, I go into classrooms and I love talking to students and bringing the submarine to them, whether it's at a museum or it's in their classroom. But that only reaches such a small portion of students. And I have bigger plans in mind. Because there are myriad issues facing our oceans right now. And we all know this. And it's going to take an army of hearts and minds to innovate the new solutions for all of these problems. And they're out there. When you go into a classroom and you talk to a group of students and you say, who wants to be an ocean explorer? Who wants to be a submarine pilot? The hands hit the roof. We tell our students, you can grow up to be anything you want. But let's give them some options. They don't know what they don't know. So my goal is to show them life as an ocean explorer and hopefully encourage them to put themselves in that position and see themselves in my shoes and go for it and just go out there and do something exciting, ocean related. You can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can do anything you want. All of those fields are available to you in the ocean sciences. So my big plan was to apply for a National Geographic Young Explorer grant. And I knew if I was going to get the grant, I had to be bold. So I decided I was going to dive 2 subs in 2 weeks in 2 locations and hold live video conferences with classrooms from both places from inside the sub. I was on a very small budget, so I knew my criteria for the sub were I can't use a ship because ships are prohibitively expensive for a grant this small. So I knew I needed a shore-based sub and I needed it somewhere with an internet connection. And by within, I mean running several hundred feet of Cat5 Ethernet cable. I'm capable of that. You know, you protect it from the dogs who want to come and chew on the cables and the tourists walking up and down the beaches and the waves crashing over your non-watertight connections. But it's possible. So I set out to go do these dives, and the 2 subs I picked were the Kura sub and Idabel. So the idea was manned submersible deep reef exploration, to go out and film and photograph the deep reefs of these 2 locations and conduct real-time ocean outreach from inside the submarine. I wanted to use Google Hangout, which is a live video conferencing platform. I wanted to use Twitter, Facebook, social media, anything that I could to get classrooms in and involved in asking questions. So I prepped my gear. I got my expedition flag, which was very exciting. Prepped all my gear and headed out to Curacao. This tiny little island nation, recently a sovereign nation, is a Dutch colony about 50 miles off the coast of Venezuela. There's a little green arrow pointing to it. And it's home to the Curacao, which is a 5-man research submersible that's outfitted like a dream. I mean, it pilots like a dream. It has manipulator arms on both sides. It has a basket. It has this great fish sampling device that expels a water-soluble fish anesthetic that's really amusing. No animals are harmed. They are completely fine within about 2 minutes of being anesthetized, but you just see these fish start to get really sleepy. I've seen a moray eel just fall right over. And then that way you can take pictures of them, or researchers like Carol Baldwin of the Smithsonian, who was on board my dives, can collect those fish, examine them, and use them in her museum research. So I set off to dive 2 dives in the Kura sub, and then run a Google Hangout from inside the sub after the fact. So after my very exciting dives, which included hunting lionfish, the first time a manned submersible has ever speared a lionfish. It was incredible. We were on board. The cheers were so loud inside the submarine, I swear you could have heard them on the surface. And I held a Google Hangout. What I had for this Hangout was me, haha, there I am. I had a classroom myself. I had a professor from Drexel University and another ocean explorer all come and participate. But I hit a glitch. Nearly a year ago, when I was writing this grant, so enthusiastically, I miscalculated the school year, and I was on expedition the week before classes started. Bummer. So I had a fantastic teacher who brought in his kids, and he brought some other students in the week prior to school to participate. But I was a little bit heartbroken. That was kind of the purpose of the thing. But I showed them some of the photos that I had collected of this beautiful crinoids, the scorpion fish, and the flame scallops, which were all just immensely beautiful creatures as deep as 1,000 feet. Um, but I was really optimistic about the next one. All right, next week, school's in session. I'm going to be in Roatan, Honduras, and I'm going to dive to 2,000 feet, which is deeper than I've ever been before. Previous to this, my deepest dive was to 936 feet. So normal, and the eye on the left side is twice as big and faces straight up.